Thank you to my channel members and Ko-fi supporters that make these videos possible. Quick announcement before this video begins. For reaching 5K subscribers, I opened a Discord. Link in the pinned comment below if you want to hop on. Now then, let's get into the video. Hello everyone. We all have a pet deck, and for me, that deck is Pharika, God of Affliction. So naturally, I keep an eye on any card from a new set that would go well with her. Something stood out to me though when I was sifting through the Golgari cards of Murders at Karlov Manor this year. You see, my Pharika deck already had Skeleton Crew from Lost Caverns of Ixalan, the set before, and Tormod the Desecrator from Commander Legends. Cards leaving the graveyard effects were part of the deck's little niche. With MKM though, we got a slew of cards that did and enabled exactly that. These Gravebreak cards and cards that enabled them made up the entirety of the Golgari limited theme for that set. Murder at Karlov Manor's main set and supplemental products had all at once released 8 whole new cards that I had deemed good enough to include in Pharika. At first, I was tremendously excited. Who doesn't like new toys? But then, after a little bit of time, I realized my deck had just become more homogeneous. Simply put, my deck was now close to 10% cards that were designed in tandem. They worked together already. Before, when it was just Tormod and Skeleton Crew, I had a sense of brewer's pride. But now, those interactions were common, as the number of those effects in the deck doubled, all with one set. Now, enfranchised viewers of mine might remember back in the Pharika deck tech video, I listed MKM as the most influential set to my deck, and I didn't really seem fazed by it at all. Looking back in hindsight though, I certainly feel I was pandered to in a way. And don't get me wrong, Pharika still plays incredibly and is super fun and unique, but those 8 Murders at Karlov Manor cards opened a Pandora's box for me in a way. Let's explore it. For this topic, I first need to discuss limited design philosophy somewhat. I'm not going to get super long-winded about it. I just want to bring up a couple of vocabulary words. Those being signposts and archetypes. An archetype is a play pattern that is designed to emerge in draft. For example, in M21, life gain was a theme across white and black. You could see this because of cards across rarities that mentioned life in some meaningful way, like Revitalize, Veto Thorn of the Duskrose, and Indulging Patrician. And herein lies the definition of a signpost. Mostly printed out uncommon, multicolor cards like Indulging Patrician here define a set's archetype for a color pair at a glance. In the past decade or so, we've gone from seeing signposts that hint at a color combination strength, but not necessarily everything they do, to seeing signposts that point to the only thing a color combination does. Let's look at bloomburrow again to see what I mean. Did you know that out of 16 lizard cards in bloomburrow, only 5 of them didn't mention anything about making an opponent lose life? Even still, you can clearly see that 2 of the 5 remaining cards, that being Steam Path Charger and Agate Blade Assassin, was also meant to enable the archetype, leaving us with 3 out of 16 cards that are lizards that didn't lean into the new lizard gimmick. This is a fine way to design for a limited environment for newer players, as it lets them onboard easier by saying, oh, look at Fireglass Mentor here. Lizards must care about life loss. Even so, it can still cause problems in Limited by making open lanes too easy to identify and can lead to not enough tension in the drafting pod. Enough about Limited though. When we get to Constructed, we see that by densely packing a set with strict archetypes, you end up with a package problem. Basically meaning that a card feels useless or stranded without another card that was printed in the same set, as a part of the same package. Take standard Rakdos Lizards for instance, which makes up 4.4% of the standard metagame. Only 8 of the 32 creatures in this deck don't come from bloomburrow. Now, this deck is far from one of the best decks in the format. Most standard decks actually have a good smattering of cards from different sets. But when we look at casual deck building or modern, we can see where this package problem becomes malignant. I am doubtful that many of you would describe energy decks in Modern as fun to deck build around. Even if you like the deck's play patterns, the card choices are practically made for you because all the card's strongest synergies were printed alongside each other in the same set. This extends to Casual Commander as well, where I noticed the issue first. When you want to build squirrels in Commander, if you want synergy, you're probably going to be running most of the squirrel cards in bloomburrow since they all care about food. You'll probably go to Middle Earth in that case and use some of the food cards there. Oh, and what about the food package in Modern Horizons 2? And you can see the problem. We're not shopping here based on individual cards we think are cool together, but instead by set packages that were designed in tandem to be working together. And what we end up with is a deck with predictable play patterns and a non-unique feeling. All of this discussion begs the question of what I feel are some examples of a deck that are on the opposite side of this problem. Ones that showcase a mix of cards from across sets. For me, the prime example of one of these is Miracles. Library manipulation comes in a lot of shapes and sizes, so it ends up being a Frankenstein of a ton of different eras of Magic design. Surveil lands are probably one of the coolest new additions. Since fetches would already shuffle your brainstorms, now they could also manipulate the top card of the deck after the shuffle. A deck like Miracles is cool because typically there's only one Miracle card it's running, at least in the Modern Legal variant, that being Terminus. And the deck is built around supporting that card's power by using cards that never were, I think anyway, designed to work specifically with Miracles, like Omen of the Sea. Anyway, what is the grand point I'm trying to make here? I brought the topic of today's videos to a few of my peers, and Snail mentioned a conversation he had with his friend Hans about this conundrum, who had a pretty poignant take that summed up how I felt about the issue. He talked about how this narrow package design-based philosophy feels like the actual fun is being had by the game designers, and the players are just expected to simulate the deck-building creations of those designers with little deviation. Basically, R&D is making a jigsaw puzzle, while I want things that don't fit together so I can make a found object sculpture. That brings me around to my last point on the matter, that this era of design isn't technically all bad side. I know people who hate deck building probably love the fact that R&D is making more obvious synergies between cards. Like I've mentioned before, this philosophy is also good for new players getting into the game. Some people even just like jigsaw puzzles despite not being new. Even I like to build a simple guilty pleasure synergy deck now and again. But there are certainly major flaws that can't be ignored. The title of this video wasn't clickbait, as the catalyst for it was Mark Rosewater's 2024 State of Design article, where he confirmed that he identifies this as a design problem, at least to the extent we saw it in Modern Horizons 3, the home of Boros energy. Hopefully, this means that the design team is more vigilant about homogeneity in all sets going forward, but also keeps an eye out to ensure that a set doesn't become too dissonant either. Anyway, tell me, what is your opinion of the topic? Has the secret tech in one of your decks become commonplace as a Magic mechanic today? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And until next time, bye!